two flies. We're finishing up the streamers. This first fly is, it's called the Goldie. It's a terrific, terrific pattern. It's funny is, I do a lot of fishing on the Housatonic, and I know a lot of the guys from the Housatonic Fly Fishing Association, and I go fishing with them. And they said, listen, you want smallmouth? All you need is the Goldie. And it's true. It is an incredible, easy fly to fish, easy fly to tie, because, you know, if you fish for smallmouth, you're fishing around rocks, and there's a good chance you're going to lose that fly. So with that said, let's get tying the Goldie. Like I said, this is very simple. Let's zoom in on this. Very, very simple fly to tie. It has all the ingredients, and all it uses is Bill's body braid right here. It's very simple, and a bead head. It's very, very, very little, very, very little ingredients on this, so it makes it easier to tie. It could be tied as an if, it could be tied as a big streamer, it could be tied as a lot of different ways. And there's nothing to say that you can't do this as a saltwater fly. So with that said, let's start tying that. We're going to start with a round shanked hook, such as this. I'm going to crush down the barb. And I'm going to use a bead head. You could use cones, you could use bead heads. It's your choice. Now with the beads, you got two things. You got a big hole, and a small hole. Put the small hole on first, slide it around. Reason is because you want to be able to need that big hole to go around the bend. If you do it the opposite, it's not as easy. I'm going to start with put a little lead wire on, break it right off. And do a few wraps. Break it off. Now you can weight this as heavy or as light. You don't have to use lead. I put lead on here for two reasons. First of all, I do want a little bit of weight to it, right? Even though these materials do not hold water, they do not float. So you don't have to put weight. I do like to, a little bit of weight. Another reason why I put it on is because I'll use this lead wire to stabilize the bead. And to do that, you're going to take a little super glue. Like that. And slide that right up into the bead like that. I'm going to use this thread I have. It is heavy. It would not be the choice, but I want to use it because of the color. It's a nice bright orange. So I'm just going to put that, wrap it on there, build a nice dam right behind the thread, behind the lead. And wrap all the way back. Now, in your packets, you have crystal flash, red crystal flash. Fold it in half and cut it and put the first one piece away for the next fly. We'll be able to tie two of these flies. Fold it in half again, cut it, fold it in half again, cut it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap it around your thread like this. See how I wrapped it around? That way I could slide it right on top of the hook and then wrap back on top of itself. All right? And then I have my tail. And I'm just going to trim that out. I want to leave roughly about a ½ inch. Now I'm going to take my gold braid, right, and what I'm going to do is measure it out roughly about the same size as the tail. And I'm going to do a couple wraps, get it right on top, just a couple. Fold this back and wrap back on itself. That way it's out of the way. Bring my thread up, leaving a little space, not a lot of space, but a little space, and wrap this forward. And when I get up here, I am going to do a couple wraps, tie it off. All right. Now, I did that 2 reasons, because I could have left it on there and made the whole fly gold, but I'm going to change it. I'm actually going to use a different color. And this comes in all different colors. This is Bill's body braid. I'm going to make it with copper. I think that will go really nice on this. So I'm going to cut off a section about that big. And I'm going to tie a piece like this and do 1 wrap, 2 wraps. Now I'm going to make a loop roughly back to the bend of the hook. You don't have to go that far. You can just make it a small. You could do anything you want. 2 wraps. Make another loop on the sides. And make a 3rd loop, maybe on the side. Now I'm going to fold this back and make a hot spot. That's why I'm using this bright colored thread. Like that. Do a whip finish. And cut it. Now, I take my scissors and I go in there and cut these loops just like that. And then I'm going to take my bodkin, start at the tail, stick it in there and separate. You could use your toothbrush. It's a little bit. The best tool is actually I really like the Dr. Slick tool. That really fluffs these out really well. But I don't have it with me, and so I'm going to do it this way. And then I go in here and I do the same to these. I go in there and you just separate all these pieces. There it is. And that's the Goldie. Simple, simple fly. Now you can trim it up shorter if you want, or I'm going to leave it long like this. I think it looks good with the copper and the gold. I also think it would look good with blue and pearl. I mean, you have a lot. You have so many red, gold, silver. This is such an easy fly to make. Catches a lot of fish. And the final thing is I do put a little bit of head cement right on the wraps. All right. Okay. Now, our next fly is another simple, simple fly, but we're getting a little more involved, a few more pieces involved. It's actually called, it's another streamer that a bucktail streamer that I went online and I saw that it's Hooked for Life videos. And he did a whole series of these mini trout, little trout flies. One's a little brown trout, one's a little brook trout, and this one is actually the little rainbow trout. There again, it doesn't have a tremendous amount of ingredients, but it is a terrific, terrific fly for us to fish with, only because it's a classic looking. It has a lot of good qualities to it. And if you tie this fly, you can tie just about any fly. It's not hard. It really isn't hard. Just want to get the hooks. Okay. Once again, we're doing this a little bit larger. Doing this a little bit larger than we normally do. Okay, put it right in here like this. This one I'm going to actually use black thread on. 6/0, because most of your flies were done with black thread. Okay. As you can tell, this is a very, very, this is a very, very simple fly. All right. It's a beautiful little streamer. It fishes well. I like tying the classic styles. I think they look nicer. But you know, this is, like I said, this is a practice, and it gives you all the ingredients using different body material, ripping it with tinsel. So let's get started. There again, I'm going to debarb my hook. Put in the vise. Take my thread. And start down to the base. We're using a hook that is called a limerick. As you see, it's a sharp angle. You can see that. It's a sharp angle, so you would not put a bead on a hook like this. It wouldn't clear it. Bring my thread down roughly to the point. Trim this. I'm going to take a little green bucktail, just a little bit, cut it off right at the skin, right? Look and see if you got any strays. Now you can stack this bucktail on a hair stacker and it looks great, except I prefer to have actually a little taper to it. And by leaving it natural, just taking like this hair is short, get rid of it, right? Hold it, get rid of all the short hairs underneath. Holding it by its tips, you can brush it out, measure it. I prefer having it this way. It looks a little more natural to me. If I was to sell these, I mean, if I was to tie them for sale, I'm really tying for the fisherman, not the fish. Here, I'm tying for the fish. So I think it looks better. Measure it, I want it actually about a half an inch beyond. So, half an inch beyond. Wrap my thread all the way to the front again. And a loose wrap, pull straight down, hold the bucktail on the top. Notice how I did that. Hold the bucktail on the top. Yeah, there you go. It's about a half an inch, a little longer, right? Reach in there, cut these. Notice I'm using the angle of the eye to get my cut. Bring this back. Now I'm going to rib this with a fine ribbing, and I want to tie it back here because if I start building everything at the back end, if I keep tying it in the back end, it's going to become a big lump back there. So I like to build up a body by just holding it. Now I'm going to hold this off to the side. See how I'm doing that? Holding it off to the side. Wrap all the way back to just in front of the point. And I'll explain why there. And I bring this forward. Okay. I'm going to take my body material. Now, you can use floss. You can use yarn, white yarn. You can use a lot of different things. Bill's body braid if you want. But I'm using this. This is a poly type of yarn. It has a lot of stretch to it. It's kind of translucent. And when it's tied on right, it looks pretty good. But you don't have to use this. Use what you got. So I'm going to tie that in right there on the top again. Now, this time I'm holding it all the way to the back. Right in front. Right there, just in front of that hook point. And there's a reason, because we're actually going to go behind the tinsel. Bring my thread forward again and let it hang. Now I'm going to start wrapping that. First wrap goes behind the tinsel, and now they're going to go forward. Forward. And when I get to the front, tie it off, 3 wraps right behind it, and then cut it. And tie it off. Now I've got to take my tinsel and wrap it spiral wrap it forward. Now I'm not counter wrapping it because this is not really going to support, protect anything. It's just for an accent. I really think it looks pretty cool. Try to do it evenly. Wraps. And then tie it off. Now, we're going to put a throat on this fly, and we're going to use saddle hackle. This is saddle hackle right here. You could buy it on a skin, which I prefer doing, or you can buy it loose like this, right? And they see how webby it is right here. It's going to make it good. What you want to do first is get rid of all this fluff, and this is right here. Just get rid of it. You don't need it. It gets in the way, right? And then cut that off. Now, notice I pulled down. If you can't pull it up. See how I'm brushing this out at 90 degrees from the stem? I'm going to pinch it. I got a really good grip on it. I'm not gripping the stem. I'm gripping the barbels on the side. I'm going to grab it right here. Now I got to pull up. I can't pull down. I got to pull up like that. See how I did that? I pulled it right off the side. Now I'm going to make a little paintbrush. And I'm going to tie it right on top like that. All right. And my dog's barking up a storm. Looks pretty good so far. Right now, I'm going to take pink. Little pink bark tail. Pink, right? Reach in there. Not a tremendous amount. There again, anytime you cut hair off a hide, you cut it right at the base of the hide. Even if you don't only need a little bit, you don't want to leave those stubs on the hide. It just makes it harder. Now notice, I'm not going to stack this, but I got a lot of hairs that are out of, way too long. So just get rid of them. Hold it like this, clean it out. Measure it. I want it to go right to the back of the hook. If I go too far around, right? If I go that like far like this, when you're fishing it, a lot of times it'll get wrapped around the hook. So you don't want that, but you do want it just about to the tip of the bend of the hook. Measure it. Do a couple loose wraps. I always pull down. Don't pull off to the side like this or like this. Always straight down. You tighten it up. Make a couple wraps. Right. Reach in there and use the angle to give you a nice taper. Right. Now let's build up a little bit ahead. Tie it down. Make sure it's even on the sides. Good. And then bring it back down to here. I'm going to take my green now. This is my green bucktail. And once again, as you can see, I've been using this. Notice how I cut it off the hide. It would be a pain in the neck not to do it that way. So you reach in there, cut it right down on the hide. Take your green, look for any really like this. This one's a little long. This one's maybe a little long. Right, clean out all the fluffies. There's one more. There you go. See, it looks pretty even now. Measure it. I want it roughly the same length as the pink. Hold it, loose wrap, straight down. You could use the pinch wrap if you choose to. I use usually my loose wraps. Wrap it back. It's on there pretty good. Make sure it's in there. It looks pretty good. Use the angle. Cut it. Trim it up before I tie it up. And then I'm going to just build a nice head. Like that. You see that I got a couple of hairs sticking out of the way. So reach in there with my tweezers. And I cover this. And whip finish. And now when you use bucktail, it looks pretty good. It looks good even on all sides. When you use bucktail, I personally say you must really use head cement. And the reason is because the bucktail is slippery and it could pull out. At least by doing with head cement, it locks it in. Just yeah. Now, if you get a little bit of head cement in the eye, just flick it like that, and it'll pop right out. When it dries, it will dry nice and smooth. It has a good look to it, you know. So those are the two flies that we tied.